Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, dear leaders, great leaders and scholars. Thank you so much for joining us once again tonight on 11 December 2024. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. Tonight we are discussing a very interesting and a very important topic that is very, very important for our continent and even for ourselves as leaders. Vadis, where to? Where are you going, African leadership? We are hoping to be joined again, or rather, by Professor Joseph Diescho. Last time he couldn't make it because he had some technical problems. I was speaking earlier today, and he was citing again that he's still trying to connect. I don't know, because the professor is based in Germany. I thought I thought Germany would be much better than us. So I mean, I would understand if someone was from one of the countries, and I'm not going to mention names, but maybe one of the countries in Africa. But yeah, we'll never know. These things do happen all over the globe. What can we say? What can we do? So welcome to this session. We will continue as we always do. Welcome to our leaders, to our regulars, to our members, men and women who are here every Wednesdays or as often as they can to be with us, as we're always here to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, and to co-learn as leaders, because we have realized that leadership, it's a journey. Leadership is not a destination. Great leaders must constantly develop themselves. As we always say, you're a leader, you stop developing yourself, you will be obsolete. You may as well stop leading if you are lazy and you are not someone who always want to learn, to read, to empower yourself, to develop yourself, because that is very, very important in leadership. And a special welcome to our colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, you've never been with us, a special welcome to you. And please do feel at home, relax, participate. This is a safe space. This is a community of leaders, so anyone and everyone can talk. It seems like Prof. Diescho is struggling to join us, but he's going to connect us via the phone. He's calling me now. So he will be connecting us via the phone. So we will hear him, even though we may not see him, but at least there's some progress that he can be able to engage us, and we can engage him. And I just hope that everything will go well. Prof. Diescho, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
I don't talk much, but I want to honor this.
Yeah, as much as you can, Prof. There's so many great leaders and scholars here who left everything to come to hear you, because we are the most respected intellectuals. So when they hear your name, people want to come, especially it's the second time. But thank you for the great efforts. I hope you just make your contributions, but you will address us. And then if you can just take some few questions as people would like to engage with, that would be perfect. We are discussing Vadis African leadership, a very important topic, and which is very interesting because so many things have just happened. In particular, 2024, there were so many elections all over the world. but Africa alone, the continent, we had plus minus 20 elections, and so many things happened during 2024. Can you address us, and then we can engage you after your talk? Over to you, my professor. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much indeed for this opportunity. And I'm going to go, the way I plan to do it is to challenge us all to look at the manner in which we have been dealing with leadership on the African continent, starting in 1958, when Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana screamed very loudly that Africa must unite, we must have one continental government. You recall Nkrumah's credo was seek first political independence, and the rest will be added unto it. It would appear that many African countries received their independence, but very little else was added to it. Let me begin by situating this discussion theoretically. In 1994, Time magazine, an American magazine, commissioned a few noted scholars of anthropology, sociology, history, and political science to compose an essay. And they did that, and the title of this really serious essay was, "Where Have the Leaders Gone?" That was 1994. Western powers, if you will, at their 20th summit. Bill Clinton was in the White House. In Japan, Helmut Kohl was in Germany, John Major was in the United Kingdom. The essays concluded in unison that the world did not have a leadership that it required. None of these luminaries would fit the jacket of a leader. A few months later, however, that void was filled by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela of South Africa. So I make no apologies that South Africa remains, for us as Africans, the epicenter of African development politically. Why did the world turn to a black person as the most significant world leader at the time? I'm sure many of us who were familiar with his leadership of South Africa when he was president may say he was not the greatest president. He was not the greatest harbinger of change in South Africa. However, he is still the most significant moral leader of our time. What is it that Nelson Mandela did that other people did not do? Let me go back a few years before that. 1984, Chinua Achebe of Nigeria wrote a book, The Trouble with Nigeria. And he concluded that the trouble with Nigeria, and by extension we can say the trouble with Africa, is simply and squarely a failure of the political leadership that we have had thus far. A few years before that, to be exact, 1958, not a few, as a matter of fact, a number of years, 1958, Chinua Achebe again wrote a very, very seminal novel titled The Man of the People, wherein he depicted the particular difficulty that many African countries have experienced after independence. And I suspect that South Africa has entered the stable of not escaping the bottleneck, if you will, of African politics. Achebe said at the time The trouble with our new nation is that none of us have been indoors long enough. We'd all been in the rain together until yesterday. Then a handful of us, the smart, the lucky, ever the best, had scrambled for the one shelter that our colonial rulers left behind and had barricaded themselves after they took it over. And from within, they sought to persuade the rest of us through numerous loudspeakers that all arguments should cease and the whole people should speak with one voice. The picture here is that at the time of political change, a few Africans managed to get into the shelter that the colonial masters left behind. And they behaved, a la George Orwell, exactly like the masters behaved before. Anthropologists would say the pedagogy they received was that of greed, unresponsiveness, selfishness, self-serving themselves all the time, and they lost touch with the majority of the people. Does it sound familiar?
Yep.
Many other people wrote. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, many other nations have fallen into that trap. So this is what I wanted to address, to say, how do we break down our own understanding of leadership in Africa? You remember that over the last decade, revolutionaries came and took over the governments of their countries and proceeded to run Africa into the ground. Soldiers or military men in uniform promised redemption and hastened to run Africa into the ground. Civilians kept coming and coming to say they will redeem Africa, and they continued to run Africa into the ground. There have been moments, however, of great rhetoric about the bright future of Africa. And if you recall, the 1960s was called the year of Africa, or Africa's year. 1980s was described as the decade for Africa. But what happened? Maybe we should return to start with to Frantz Fanon, who was a psychoanalyst in Algeria. And he wrote a significant book that was published for the first time in 1972, The Wretched of the Earth, wherein he argues that when African people take over government from their colonial masters, invariably, all of them suffer from two particular diseases or maladies. These diseases are, number one, spiritual bankruptcy, and the second one is intellectual laziness. It would appear that in the dictionaries of leadership, Africans were and are still very good at theorizing and thinking ahead when they are oppressed. The moment they enter power, they stop theorizing and they just ride on and enjoy the privileges in exactly the same manner as their colonial masters from whom they took over power. Let's go back to Paulo Freire, the Brazilian Catholic philosopher, who was a very serious educationist. And he bequeathed to us a book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, wherein he argues that people who are oppressed invariably become more oppressive when they have power, because they had learned from the oppressor how to oppress. Monkey see, monkey do. There is a psychological school of thought that children who grow up in abusive homes, namely when they see the father beating the mother, those boys, those sons, become wife beaters also, because they know. And this is significant for us to internalize. What people hear, what people know, what people experience become the model of their lives. For example, I'm certain you know that Muhammad Ali had more daughters than sons. The daughters of Muhammad Ali are boxers. I'm sure you know that George Foreman had daughters. George Foreman's daughters are boxers. What does it tell us about the incubation of our political leadership? Before we answer where we are going, we need to examine where we're coming from. We're all dependent, we're all influenced by the forces that shaped us. Thomas Aquinas, the Catholic teacher of note, would say, "Cognoscente est per secundum cognoscentis." It depends not only on how it is, but it depends on the viewpoint, the perspective of the know. In other words, we interpret the world in the manner the world was introduced to us. We interpret the world in the manner the world was introduced to us. When a person grows up in a violent circumstance, violence becomes the norm. Let's rush because we don't have time. They may close the restaurant anytime now. Let me spend a minute on the leadership of Pan-Africanism that many of us still believe in. If you start with Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and they all championed one or other version of Pan-Africanism. That is to say, that Africans must be the same, be governed the same, controlled the same. And it would appear that the very people who gave us the theory of Pan-Africanism assassinated Pan-Africanism. For example, Nkrumah, we celebrate as the greatest Pan-Africanist, killed the spirit of one Africa. How did he do that? And this is a disease that most African leaders continue to suffer from. Nkrumah was so self-impressed with his prowess, with his rhetoric, with his accolades at the time, that he began to trample on the dignity of other Africans. He called himself the Savior, the Messiah of Africa. He commissioned people to write songs in his name. Nkrumah never dies. And he declared himself president for life. And that shut the door for others to participate. This is why Julius Nyerere had a problem with Nkrumah. This is why Kenneth Kaunda had a problem with Kwame Nkrumah. As a matter of fact, even now, when you survey the world of those who are preaching Pan-Africanism, you will see a disturbing tendency. They call themselves bishop, they call themselves prophet, they call themselves this, that, and the other. In other words, there is an illness amongst us as Africans to be the first at all times. We are all victims of this notion that we want to be the first black, the best black, and the only black. Now, this phenomenon transcends individual life. Our leaders want to be the number one African. Our leaders want to shine, maybe on behalf of their country, but they want to shine alone. That's why you see that just last week, when Joe Biden was in Angola, he summoned the president of Congo Kinshasa, president of Zambia, and one person inviting them. Wouldn't it have been better for the one person to go to them? Because African leaders cannot and do not want to pass up an opportunity to meet a Western leader. Because we still believe that without the West, we cannot do it. Let me rush quickly to the phenomenon of Nelson Mandela. I make no apology that many of us who are beneficiaries of the remnants of Black consciousness in South Africa and the leadership that we had in South Africa, not only after Mandela, but way before, remains for me the way for Africa to go. You may have forgotten that the idea of Africa, thinking about Africa, did not start with Kwame Nkrumah or Kenneth Kaunda or Julius Nyerere or Modibo Keita. The idea of championing the African story started in South Africa. Something happened, to be exact, in 1897 in South Africa. We want to talk about South Africa's leadership on the continent. Let's begin here, 1897. A lonely teacher from the Eastern Cape by the name of Enoch Sontonga, Enoch Mankai Sontonga, writes a prayer. And the prayer electrified Africa for many, many, many decades to come. And the prayer went as follows. Nkosi sikelela iAfrika. Malupakanyiswe uphondo lwayo. Iba imithandazo yethu. Nkosi sikelela thina lusapho lwayo. Now this is not just a small prayer, my colleagues. Pay attention to the reference of Upondo. Pondo in the Nguni language family refers and points to a horn. 1897, this South African is praying about the horn of Africa, that is Eritrea and Ethiopia. Because Ethiopia just emerged out of a brutal war with Italy. You can see already the seed germinating in South Africa to go upwards. As if that is not enough, he says, Lusapo, the African family. And this is way before the people in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago began to speak about Pan-Africanism, even in the United States. As a matter of fact, the idea of Pan-Africanism did not start with Africans. It started with the children of former slaves in the Americas and in the Caribbean. Let's rush to 1906. South Africa raises its hand again for the sake of the African continent. A student at Columbia University, my alma mater in New York City, by the name of Pixley Kaisaka Seme, and he had the opportunity to address the university, 1906. And the title is Speech, The Regeneration of Africa. And he talked about him as a Black person, as an African, whose blood was in the veins of the rivers and the trees and the valleys of the African continent. Can you see the connection between 1906 and 1996? When Thabo Mbeki rises in Parliament and he reads the poem, I'm an African. Now let's rush to Nelson Mandela so that you can appreciate why the world sees him as the most notable leader in our time. And I'm not talking about how he ran South Africa as the president under very, very difficult circumstances. I'm talking about the credo, the belief, the worldview that Nelson Mandela presented to the world. And that worldview will never die. On the 20th of April, 1964, Mandela appears in the court of law in Pretoria before a very hostile apartheid judge by the name of Quartus de Wet. Mandela is more than aware that the death penalty is unavoidable. However, he has this opportunity to address the court, and he says, in my lifetime, I dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. Ladies and gentlemen, note here, I dedicated my life to the struggle of the African people, not South African people, African people. I have cherished, I have fought against white domination. I have fought against black domination. See the juxtaposition here that oppression can come from white or black. And Mandela says oppression is evil, regardless of where it comes from. He continues to say, I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunity. Let me go slowly over this. And I cherish this and the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunity. At this point in time, my friends, the world leaders that are better known to us, such as Martin Luther King Jr., Kennedy, the German leaders, were talking about the world of men. And they talked about equality between men. For the first time, a leader of the state of Nelson Mandela uses the word persons. South Africa begins to include men and women, and English was not his first language. He says it's an ideal that I wish to live for and achieve, but if need be, it's an ideal for which I'm prepared to die. And here is the catchment area, ladies and gentlemen. This African pronounces the worldview that Africans believe in. In other words, I am willing to die for what I believe in, not kill for what I believe in. The Western world kills for what it believes in. What Trump is saying. He's willing to destroy life for his belief system. Mandela said, I'm willing to die for this idea of a free South Africa in which all persons live in freedom and have equal opportunity. Let me rush to the conclusion so that we can engage. Where is the leadership in Africa going to? Unfortunately, we live in a world of identity politics. Even in Europe, where I am now, the community of Europeans is falling apart. Raw nationalism is rearing its ugly head again. The Germans want to have a king again. Trump wants to be a king. And he is not interested in the diversity of the world, which we in South Africa have been celebrating. Where is Africa in this? I am very, very cautious to say I'm not as Pan-Africanist as I used to be. I really believe that for us to have a different leadership that works in Africa, we need to think differently. Albert Einstein said, if you do something the same manner over and over and you get the same result, you are insane. We cannot scream and shout unity of Africa the way we have been doing it. I believe, therefore, that the leadership that we need today is that African people who think continentally and globally, but act locally. All politics is local. People must work to change the circumstances, the living conditions of the people where they are. My friends, the people in Zerere, in Popo, are not interested to move to Liberia. The people in Kakamega in Kenya are not interested to move to Namibia. They want to make a survival, they want to survive and make a living where they are. This is where the leadership of Africa could germinate. That old Greek philosopher who talked about leadership, Plato, said we need philosopher kings. And philosopher kings really are those individuals who are read in the community, who understands the needs, the circumstances, the desires, the pain, the frustration of the community, and grow out of those circumstances models to change their lives for the better. I don't believe that Africans are interested in having a mega super government sitting somewhere in Kinshasa when we have bad governments locally already. We don't need to be oppressed by one big government. We need to improve the government on site. In other words, people should not be ashamed to be South Africans, Botswana, Kenyans. Better life will come when we are governed differently. Now, I'm not trying to say that we should not unite. People know already who they are. Most people in Africa are not even aware that they're Africans because that terminology does not come from them. There is a story, and I'll end here so that I can be challenged. There's a story of a United Nations expedition. One of the islands was caught up in this world calamities of tsunami, these winds. So the UN sends a boat to rescue the people who were suffering there. Typical of the United Nations, the team comprised different nationalities, including 2 South Africans. When they were on the boat, they were excited to go and rescue and save lives. One of the South Africans was a very serious Pan-Africanist, and he took his son with him so in order to raise his son to understand Pan-Africanism. So the boat developed problems at sea. Water was seeping into the boat, and people got scared. So the captain says, ladies and gentlemen, we will not reach our destination if some of us don't jump off the boat. No one raised the hand. Said, okay, can those who want to volunteer to sacrifice raise their hand? No hand. So he says, so we do it alphabetically. Africans, no hand. Arabs, no hand. Blacks, no hand. So the young South African boy he turns to his father and he says, Baba, did you tell us that we are Africans? And the man taps on his son's shoulder gently and he says to him, my son, today we are Zulus. In other words, when it comes to real managing crises in Africa, we return to the primordial identities of tribe. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's work from being a tribes person to being a community person to being a nationalist to being an Africanist. And then we can participate better in the affairs of the world. You cannot participate in an international sports tournament if you don't have a local team. So, fellow Africans, let us work to improve South Africa better where we are. Let's think continentally and act locally. Let's help those who cannot help themselves. Only then can we improve the greater lot of the African continent. Only then can we be counted in the affairs of the world. May we strengthen. Thank you very much. I'll take questions.
Wow, my professor. Thank you so much. Indeed, the devil is a liar. You know, the fact that he made it so impossible and difficult for you to tune in with what you have just shared with us now. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, the accused. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, my professor. Wow, what an insightful masterclass. You know, I was tempted to say maybe, but obviously we can't lose hope. It will be a third attempt if we bring you back again. But I'm so jealous, really, that this insightful, informative, instructive, illuminative or illuminating masterclass that would like to hear in a good setup, you know. But thank you so much for your efforts that you can. Yeah, maybe we need to bring here in South Africa and then have a physical sessions that we can have with you. But yeah, just quickly, because as I said earlier on, I've got men and women that I respect and admire a lot here, scholars, leaders who normally attend our webinars and our sessions. I just want to give one or two maybe for comments or questions to Prof. Anyone, ladies and gentlemen, who would like to engage Prof while he's still here. Obviously, as you are saying that he struggled again to connect, but he made great effort at least to connect via phone. He's phoning us all the way from Germany. I know it is not ideal, but at least we could hear, we could get the gist of what he taught us today. And it's recorded. We will play it again and again in our YouTube channel. We'll learn a lot from it. So I just want to give colleagues the opportunity. Any thoughts, comments, or questions, ladies and gentlemen, before the Prof leaves? Calvin, I see you've been very busy there in the chat room. Any thought you want to say to the Prof?
Prof, good evening and good evening to everyone. Yes. No, my point was that I realized, you know, in some of these issues that Prof has highly discussed, that, you know, military intelligence in many areas in Africa, it has become a problem whereby, you know, certain leadership, they are acting with boldness because of they are somehow protected by certain military generals in Africa. To a point that we realized when we do some of our researches in South Africa, most of their kids or family members, they are living a nice life here in South Africa, those generals. And some of the, you know, the leadership, they are family members. But you find in their countries, they somehow using bullying tactics, divide and rule tactics, and more of false play. So I just wanted to highlight that. And, you know, as Africans, we do pray. We are hard at work prayers, and we've got so much minerals that, like Prof indicated, that we won't even need anybody else if we are united here in Africa to, to get the fruits out of this particular minerals. But military intelligence is a problem in Africa. And we always say that any president in the whole world, as long as you don't have strong intelligence, you can wake up tomorrow and be the most clueless president of any kind.
Thank you, Calvin. Over to you, my professor.
If I understood the Calvin's point, the military is a problem.
Yep.
It's very sad. There is this current excitement about the militaries in Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and to a lesser degree, Senegal. We are very excited about what Traore is doing in Burkina Faso. I'm not overly excited about the development. I like it that they intervened to restore the dignity of the West African people. I'm not altogether convinced that they can succeed with the journey which they started by delinking so suddenly, abruptly, and completely from France. And I'll tell you why. If you go to Paris today, you see, you feel that you are either in Saint-Jean or Alexandria. The number of Black people who make France, particularly Paris, work are from West Africa. When you speak to them in English, they hate it. They are so obscenely French. They are more French than the French. That worries me. That they have not managed to bring about a consciousness in their countries so that they begin to believe in themselves. You see, our struggles in Africa are not just economic. Our struggles start with our own self-definition. We do not define ourselves in the manner that we wish to be defined. We copycat other people. We want to be seen like other people. I'm not convinced that Burkina Faso's reliance on Russia is the way to go. I'm not convinced that turning to Russia or to China is the way to redeem ourselves. Nkrumah was right when he said, we're not looking east or west, we're looking Africa. I wish Steve Biko could come again and have 10 Steve Bikos in all of the 54 countries in Africa. That Steve Biko would say to us, that Steve Biko would remind us, don't ask your oppressor to tell you when you are doing it right. You must define that yourself. The new militaries in West Africa's reliance on Russia, to me, is a repetition of new imperialism. It's not the solution. So if we can defend Pan-Africanism, it is that idea that we can develop solutions to our own problems without inviting somebody's enemy. Russia cannot be our best friend because Russia is the enemy of America and America is our enemy. We can't do that. Let's start with ourselves. In the Chinese teaching, there is a credo, a belief. Confucius taught the people of China, and you can see it running through their veins wherever they are. They are Chinese first, because Confucius taught them, go to the people, live with the people, love the people, learn from the people, hear them, work with what they have, start with what they know. And they will come back to you later and say, hey, we do it ourselves. Why can't we as Africans turn to ourselves with our own resources, starting with minerals? But our most precious resource is our bodies. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, my professor. Any other questions or thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, while the prof is still here? If I may engage you, Prof, there, if I may ask, what do you think of the developments at your native land in Namibia, the first female or woman president?
You want to know if it's politically correct view or my own view?
Your own view, your intellectual view. Your intellectual view.
That symbolically, Namibia chose a woman. And I'm very troubled by this choice. I know her very personally. We chat on WhatsApp even now. And I hope and I pray that I'm wrong. I'm not convinced that she really understands what is at stake to govern a country. She's a very decent human being, but she is, in my view, not there yet. You see, to be optimistic is not a strategy. You need to work it out in your head to say, how do I put together this puzzle to take the country forward? I am disappointed in her because she has not addressed corruption. I am disappointed in her because she's been inconsistent with her statements throughout the campaign. I'm disappointed because she has made promises that I know she cannot deliver. But I'm totally committed to helping where I can to make her succeed where she can. We need to be self-critical sometimes. And I don't want to say anything that will sound misogynistic about her age. I think that the Namibians have not been very kind to her. She had 2 motor accidents. She has difficulty walking, and it's not fair for her managers to parade her to all the places and make her dance. We need to protect our leaders sometimes. We need to work with the limitations that they have. I would have protected her and not expose her to show that she's not that well.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. It's interesting there when you say she's not there yet, and she's 72 years old. Will she ever be there? I mean, in Botswana, you've got in Botswana, you've got So, no, so I was just saying that in Botswana, if you have a president who's 54, and in Senegal is 43, and then in Namibia is 72, but you still argue that she's not there yet. It means that she'll never be there. I mean, yeah.
Before in my view, the leader we had on the African continent who had a template, who had a formula with which to transform the continent, or starting with the country in which he was, but did not get it right, was Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki had a plan, but his weakness was that he did not build discipleship around him. All the people that he surrounded himself with did not understand him, because he's not a very vocal human being. He did not. What I'm trying to say is, leaders who succeed teach others to internalize the mission. Thabo Mbeki assumed that the others understood, and they did not understand, and they let him down, and we let ourselves down.
Wow, perfect, Prof. I see a hand there. Is Mpolai. I don't know if it's Mpolai or Polai, but over to you, and go ahead and ask the Prof or the comment. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. I hope Professor Diescho can hear me because he'll remember me as he will remember me.
Just remind you your name.
Mpulai Nkupani is my name.
Mpolai Mukupane.
Yes. Professor Diescho will remember me. I hope he does. Anyway.
Mpolai, the prof is asking, is it Mpolai from Utingo?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's
yes, yes, Prof. Wonderful. Excellent. Go ahead,
I wasn't going to say anything. I mean, I couldn't hear the presentation properly. But I was touched by the fact that I was listening to him today because I knew him. He was my leader. He was my my boss, therefore my leader. When my son was 4 years old, my son is now 26. So you can imagine, you know, now we're telling you our ages, but you can imagine how long that was. But I just listened to his response about that female leader in Namibia. And I was going to firstly criticize him. I was going to clap him for saying what he said. However, in hindsight, I think he said what I expected him in particular to say because, you know, people, well, females, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, as we put it in South Africa, do need an opportunity to get there. And it's up to leaders like him and everybody on this platform, and particularly male leaders in South Africa, to give female leaders space, but also not just that, but to support them. So I am, in spite of my disappointment by his first words, I am encouraged by his later words where he said, I will support, I will mentor, because that's essentially what we need as female leaders. That's what we need as young people, particularly within the South African context. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Over to you, Prof.
I agree. And I'm very, very honest with her when I engage her to say, my sister, stop talking about the liberation struggle. The young people are not interested. They cannot go and fight apartheid anymore. They are fighting other diseases and problems. Talk about now and the future. Our liberation movements in the whole have a difficulty reinventing themselves to suit and fit the circumstances of today. They are so stuck in their own glory days. We did this in Namibia. You find these people who are so intolerant to young people, intolerant towards women. They keep saying, I fought for this country. I liberated this country. I died for this country. He's still alive. It's very difficult to engage those people who have that mindset. Therefore, when we are critical, we must still step away a little bit and say, how can we help? I am more than prepared to help my sister in Namibia succeed, but she must acknowledge that she needs help. Otherwise, my efforts to help her will be insulting. It will be seen that I'm treating her condescendingly because she's a woman or she's older. Our leaders are not eager to learn new things because they think they have accomplished. Maybe they have, but the world changes. You see, Europe is successful where it is because Europe is a learning organization. They keep changing all the time. Our leaders are not willing to change. If she's willing to change and learn new things, I'll be there to give her feet to walk ahead.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, my professor. And thanks, Sister Polandi. Thank you so much for your comment there. Thanks a lot. Any last question or comment before we release Prof? Ladies and gentlemen, anyone would like to say something to Prof before we release him? We definitely learned a lot tonight. As I'm saying that, I'm so jealous of this session But we'll get it right, Prof. We'll get it right. We will one day. We'll definitely have you. And as I'm saying that, even if we could really have you physical here in South Africa, just to spend 1 week here with, classes and sessions, we've learned a lot, because just within this few moments or few minutes that you spent with others, so much that you've imparted, and then that you've inspired us and empowered us with. Really, there's so much that we can learn there. Already, we've learned a lot tonight. I learned a lot. I mean, really, as I'm saying that, I can't wait really to get into the video and just and then listen and listen and listen again and again, because that's how we are learning. I like when you said, when you gave that expression that monkey see, monkey do, because it's so true that there's this illness that those who have oppressed, or those who have been oppressed, when they become liberated for whatever reason, they oppress others, instead of saying, we are from there, we cannot do this to people what happened to us. But because we are human beings, so there is this thing that gave us this, and then it becomes this cycle, which unfortunately that is killing us as leaders, especially in our continent in Africa. So from my side, my professor, I'd really like to thank you a lot for your great effort. I know that it's a second time now we tried to, but at least tonight we had you. It's just that we didn't see you, or we didn't see your face, but at least we had your voice and we had your insights, which has really assisted us a lot. But we'll keep in touch as we are in touch, and then we'll really arrange something. Yes. Go ahead, Prof.
September 1994, I was at UNISA, and Julius Nyerere was already a retired head of state of Tanzania. He visited South Africa. He did not attend, as it were, the inauguration of Nelson Mandela on May 10, 1994. However, he insisted to visit South Africa, and he called himself a political tourist. I was part of the management of that tour. And he made the request through the Tanzanian High Commission. The gentleman there was a very good human being by the name of Amin Pungwe. Nyerere said, I want to visit and I want to see only 3 people, one by one. I don't want to see them together, but one at a time. 3 people in South Africa. Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Deputy President de Klerk, and Nelson Mandela. Now, hear what he had to say to this gentleman one-on-one. He goes to Chief Buthelezi and he says, Chief Buthelezi, I never thought that I would shake hands with you because I did not like your politics before. I'm very happy that you finally agreed to participate in the election. You remember that in Inkatha Freedom Party's name was added with glue.
Yeah.
Just about 2 days before the elections. And Nyerere thanked him for that. Thank you for agreeing, because if you did not participate, there will be bloodbath in South Africa. And that bloodbath will be for all of us on the continent. I want to plead with you, please behave like the chiefs we have across the continent who believe who think they are above the law. He moves on to the clerk. And he says, Mzungu, I hated you all my life. But you are my hero now. You are the first African head of state to negotiate yourself out of power.
Sure.
And I'm glad that most of us on the continent would have left the country already when we were no longer in power. You are still here. and you are willing to serve under someone you kept in prison for so long. I have to make a request to you. I know you destroyed the nuclear bomb at Belinda by 1992. I want to urge you, South Africa, please keep the nuclear technology, because only South Africa has the know-how and the discipline to manage it. If you gave it to us on the rest of in Africa, we will use it on each other. But you white people here have a discipline. He moves on to Nelson Mandela, and he says, he shakes both hands and he says, my friend, I never thought I would have the honor to meet you. We thank God that saved you and spared you. I have a request to you. And this is, I think, where I part. When you meet other African leaders and you are the president of South Africa, please do not play the big brother. They will resent you. Yeah? Please do not play small brother either. They know you are big. They will be suspicious. Manage the relationship, because we need one another. There are certain things that South Africa has that the rest of us do not have and maybe will never have. Manage the relationship. We need you. You will therefore understand why South Africa has the highest embassies, second only to the United States. You will then understand why many ambassadors, when they retire, take up residence in South Africa. You will then understand why many leaders on the African continent, when they get sick, they go to Tygerberg and Grooteskier in Cape Town. You will then understand that there is an outpouring of dedication to the universities in South Africa. If you look at things by comparison, you will see that more students on the African continent would rather go study in South Africa than in Nigeria, which has more universities. So South Africa, don't be sorry, don't be apologetic to be South Africans, because South Africa remains, in my view, the epicenter of what Nelson Mandela called in July 1994, the new African Renaissance. God bless you.
And God bless you, sir. Thank you so much, my professor. Once again, as you said, thanks for your efforts. We've learned a lot tonight. We've empowered us, and we'll definitely keep on engaging for greater things, because there's so much that we still want from you. But thank you so much indeed for addressing us tonight, even though we had some challenges. Thank you, and may God bless you too. Thank you, sir. We understand, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for understanding and for bearing with us. So thank you so much. Please check our YouTube channel and get this video and listen and listen and listen. It's a powerful, and may I encourage you to subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications for all other new stuff that are posted there. So thank you so much. We've learned so much from all these sessions that we had, and we're looking forward to next year, 2025. As you may know, we are busy with our book project, The Power of Women in Leadership. We've got more than 30 contributors from great scholars all over the world, and great leaders, industry experts who are writing chapters on this book. We are looking forward to for this book that will be published sometimes early next year. So these are great things that are coming, and then obviously we'll have other very, very interesting things that will be happening in 2025 as we've done for 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. For those colleagues who've joined us for the first time, we normally don't do this like this. We always have our speaker with us or on the call, and that it was just unfortunate that Professor Diescho was joining us from Germany, and he had to use phone because of the connectivity there. So next week we'll be back on our normal way of doing things. So thank you so much. Please do join us again next week for another powerful lecture or powerful masterclass. We are leaders. He did say that the problem that we have with our leaders is intellectual laziness, that leaders don't want to learn and don't want to empower themselves, and that's what we've been doing in this platform, just to empower each other with different speakers, panelists, and topics, and we've learned so much together. On that note, thank you so much. The session is adjourned now. We will meet again next week, Wednesday, for our last session of the year. May God bless you, and may God bless South Africa, and may God bless Africa. Thank you so much. Inkosi sikelele iAfrika. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.